Okay, now I'd like to move on to how breaches of contract actually occur. This is set out on pages 276, 277, 278, 279, and is not terribly difficult to understand, so I won't spend a long time on it. But basically, a breach occurs in three different ways. One is, as the book points out on page 276, where a party expressly repudiates its obligations. That's where, for example, if you and I have a contract, you're buying a load of tomatoes from me, and I'm supposed to ship them to you, and you're supposed to pay for them, and I call you up and say, look, I'm not delivering the tomatoes. I'm just not doing it. Now, I might do that because I don't have any more tomatoes, or I'm getting a better price from somebody else for them. I'm going to sell them to them, or whatever. But I just say I'm not going to complete. This is called an express repudiation, and it's a major breach of the contract. And when I sort of tell you that before I'm supposed to deliver the tomatoes or whatever, it's called an anticipatory breach of contract, which is explained on page at the top of page 277 under anticipatory breach of contract. But this is an express repudiation where one party says to the other, I'm just not performing at all. I'm not performing any part of it or anything. So that's a breach of the contract, entitles the other person to damages. Or where one party renders performance impossible to complete the contract. That's set out on page 278. Now there's an example there at illustration 13.5 where it says A agrees to sell her Ferrari sports car to B for $30,000 to be delivered in 3 weeks. A few days later, X, unaware of the agreement between A and B, offers $35,000 for the car. A accepts and delivers the car to the A that day. She's now in breach of the contract because she can't deliver the car. That's called when you make performing the contract completely impossible. You're not saying I'm not going to complete, but you've done an act where it renders your performance impossible. That's sort of unusual, though. That's not as common as the express repudiation, nor is it as common as where you have a breach of the contract occurring during performance. This is an example, again, to go back where I'm ordering the tomatoes from you, or you're ordering the tomatoes from me. I'm delivering them to you, and I send you, say, oranges. So we get into the same sort of analysis there as we did before. Is this a major breach or is it a minor breach? Well, it's occurring, though, at the time of performance. This is when the breach occurs. The truck pulls up to your store, you open the back of the truck, I'm performing the contract, but there's a failure because it's oranges. Or if you've ordered tomatoes, a certain type of tomato, and I give you another type of tomato, that's a breach of contract. It's during performance. At the bottom, at the illustration of 13.6 at the bottom of page 279, highlights this. This, again, going back to whether it's a major breach or a minor breach, as to whether, if it's a major breach, then the innocent party can be discharged from the contract completely. Illustration 13.6 says the seller contracts to deliver 6,000 tons of coal and 12 monthly installments of about 500 tons each. One of the terms is that the buyer is to provide the trucks to take the coal away. In the first month, the buyer sends sufficient trucks to take away 400 tons. The buyer's default would not likely be sufficient to discharge the seller from his obligation to stand ready to provide the remaining 500 tons over 11 months. He still has to, there is a breach, but he still has to provide the remaining tonnage. But he could sue for whatever losses he's had because of the breach of by the buyer. Or under B, seller agrees to deliver 150 tons of iron per month, but delivers only 21 in the first month. Its default is very likely to discharge the buyer, which may then turn to another source of supply and sue for damages. That's where the buyer could say, I don't want to complete this contract with you. I'm discharged. I'm not buying anything from you. I'm going to buy from somebody else, and I'm going to sue you for your failure to perform. Or the buyer could continue to stand by and take the rest of the iron ore and pay for it and sue for any loss that occurred because the seller only delivered 21 tons. So again, we have to look at major breach, minor breach. You get to sue always for damages, but if you have a major breach, you may have a situation which discharges the innocent party from the contract altogether, and they can look elsewhere for whatever they're buying.